everyone, and welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color. I'm Jed Toffer. Thanks for listening. You know, my wife Vicki and I have owned and operated our photography studio, V Gallery, for 20 years now. White House has been our lab for the last 16 of those years, and we could not be happier. White House is a family-run business, just like ours. If you haven't already, check them out at WHCC.com. And if you want to drop me a line, feel free to email me at jed@WHCC.com. What have you learned about yourself in the last few weeks? When we get to the other side of this pandemic, how will your choices have evolved as a result of this challenging time? As I re-listened to this conversation I had with Parker Pfister and his partner Elizabeth Alina from Imaging USA in Nashville this past January, I came at it from a completely different perspective. Our lives have been collectively altered. Things will be different on the other side of this, whether we like it or not. And that different will look different for everyone. But after hearing this again, it made me wonder, how much of my different can be altered, or in some cases tempered by my choices? Some things, no doubt, are out of our control. Some things we just need to accept or deal with, even if it's only for the time being. But there are many things, I suspect, that are determined by choice. And that's the crux of what the three of us spoke about a few months ago. Obviously, we had no idea that this life-altering event would occur. But now that it has, I'm thinking some of the messages we discussed might be more important than ever. I hope you're safe, friends. I hope you're healthy. And I hope we are close to the other side.
Why does this mic smell like whiskey?
Well, Parker was just here.
You should ask.
All right, Parker and Elizabeth, tell me what in the world's going on. I would like to know what's going on. And I'm going to ask it like that.
Okay.
Because I want you to answer, and I want you guys to funnel out the ambiguity of that question, which is intentionally vague.
Okay, well, here's the place to begin. It's my birthday, and we're here at this, what is it? Imaging USA?
This is Imaging, yeah.
This is my true dedication to what's up. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow, I didn't know I was forcing you in. It sounds like this is not a good birthday present.
Well,
I thought meeting a bunch of strangers would be amazing for you.
Walking around a trade show.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing
Did you see that new Arca Swiss plate? It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's fair to say that you're not a photographer.
No, I'm an artist of other mediums.
Which are what?
I'm a writer.
Uh-huh.
And I used to be cellist, and one of our intentions for coming out here was actually to see if we can track down a cello. Yeah.
You're a cellist?
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite instrument in the orchestra.
Yeah, it's mine too. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, it really is.
I'm with you.
I thought
me
maybe
too.
you were questioning.
No, not at all. Not at all.
That's also, you're looking for one.
Yeah.
We are.
You're on a quest.
On a quest.
Yeah.
To look for
quest.
a good cello.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you're a writer and you're a cellist. So photography's not your bag, so to speak. It's obviously his.
Right. But I'm also an entrepreneur, a mentor. I work with high school students, helping them apply to whatever their dream school is. And over the years, it's evolved into a much deeper form of mentorship. And so that's how Parker and I, one of the ways that we connected was we both teach the creative process.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got really interested in what each other teaches. And so we do a whole bunch of collaboration.
Elizabeth came along with one of the workshops and
she came to one of yours?
To co-teach with me. We threw it into the mix, and it was a success for some. Others that weren't ready for it. It was a surprise.
For
like bringing this amazing, brilliant woman threw some people off because they wanted all me. And it was a little odd thing. The next one we did together that was not a surprise for the participants.
Right.
It was one of the best ever.
And asked me to come back. And
so the unexpected piece threw people off. I've seen it happen before.
A shock, no matter who. I was bringing this amazing gift for no extra money.
Right.
And
But it took them off a little bit.
yeah,
So they didn't know what to expect. And then
No, they didn't.
right.
They
I've
didn't.
seen it happen.
yeah,
I
it's
totally
weird.
have.
Totally weird.
So what is it that give me a sprinkling of what it is that you teach?
Well, I think the heart of it is, and this is why we teach well together, is that I'm just really interested in the why. Why are you doing this? So many of the photographers that we talk with, they don't even know anymore. They're looking at all the Instagram likes and all of it and feeling like they have to produce something that has the equal number of likes as somebody else. And so we just strip that away, and my deepest interest is in, just what do you have to say? What is it that you want to bring to the world? And this is what I do with my high school students. I always want to know, what do you have that only you can bring to the world? And I don't care what it looks like. And it's the same with the artists that we work with, the photographers. I want to know what lights them up, what excites them, what feels really deeply authentic to them. And so that we do a lot of work around that. And Parker created this really incredible curriculum around that. And so then I got to come in and see what he was doing and could have jump in with the curriculum I've created for my students. Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking for people that want to come, not to learn any tricks, not to learn the coolest, most fashionable thing to do these days to be popular. We want people who are a little lost in the mirror, who don't know who they're looking at, what they stand for, what they want to do with their art. And we just strip it back to, we get down to the place when they're getting ready to make an image, and then ask them to just stop, put the camera down. Why are you making this image? What does it say? What does it do? And that's the way we tap in to the deeper thing of, why are you a photographer in the first place? Or why do you breathe in the first place? What are you here for?
Yeah.
And almost every time people leave with a much clearer sense of who they are as a person, whether that means leaving photography, which I've had happen they leave the workshops and they're like, I've always wanted to be a nurse and I'm doing this. And I just realized I'm doing this because I want to be popular.
Interesting.
But that's not my calling.
Right.
And they leave, which is amazing. Others will go and burn all their artwork in their studio, take it out in the back gravel parking lot, and burn it all to start over because they were scared to show what they wanted to show. They were always doing what the clients asked of them. And I think as an artist, you move past the point of making other people happy. You don't want to, I hope they're going to like this. It's like, I love this. That's all that needs to be said.
Is that an ideal?
I think so. Absolutely.
How much of what you're doing is born out of something that resonates with you because you've been there, done that, experienced it, etc.?
No less than 95%.
Yeah.
Most of the time, 100%.
So you've lived this, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, in the way I cook, in the way we live, in the way everything has this artistic edge to it that I'm doing it because it's a process, and it's a beautiful process, and it's mine. And learning your own process is what we want to teach at our workshops. That's the key. That's the key.
You're on the same page.
Oh, absolutely. We were just talking about this at dinner last night.
Yeah.
I have such a deep respect for Parker as a human being and as an artist. And I was saying that the two for me are inseparable, that it's a way of being, that there's this, I think one of Parker's greatest gifts is his relentless pursuit of authenticity. And that's reflected in his art, and it's reflected in his teaching. And I share this too. I grew up in a very strict religious commune, and was sent to a convent when I was 17, and I stayed there for 4 years.
You're not kidding around.
Yeah. And so when I finally left, I it took me years to realize what I had actually experienced and how I had been forced to go down this one path. And I had bought it, because was what I was taught.
Sure.
And so then when I slowly began to get an education and start to read more deeply, or read really for myself, and learn all this, a whole new thing opened up. And then that's why I became so passionate about my own students, in my high school students. I just kept saying, they were all trying to go to the really top schools, Harvard, MIT, whatever. Right. And I just didn't care about where they went. I wanted to know, who are you and what lights you up? Because they were getting shoved down the same path in, not a religious sense, but being given the same path of perfect grades, perfect test scores, high level extracurriculars. And then I saw that there was no difference between where I was being shoved down one path and they're being shoved down one path. I just wanted to know what lights you up.
How much of what you guys do then requires, initially especially, a de-education? Does that come across right? Like, how much of what, considering what your mission is, considering what you want to accomplish with people, individuals in particular, if you take like an individual that you can think of, how much of it requires them being de-educated first, or essentially unplugged from whatever ideology has been thrust upon them, whether it's you must get good grades in order to be considered successful, you have to be this, or this, and you can't do this, or this. Like, someone has taught them what is good and what is bad.
Right.
And they've been thrust into that. How much do you have to take that, extract that first?
Well, I think that's actually... I personally think I have to be really careful with that, because if you try to strip away people's beliefs too early before you've established trust, they will get scared and then they'll hold on to those beliefs really tightly. So rather than trying to de-educate, I try to sort of put, with my own students, and I think with our photography students as well, is it's not about like, okay, we're going to take this away from you, although we do ask them to put their cameras away for the first couple of days. But it's more like, all right, we're going to just set that aside for now. And what we're going to do is come over here and we're going to look at something, and I ask questions with my students that probably no one ever asks them.
Yes.
And that is what Parker does all the time. And so what we want is for them to kind of on their own come to this, oh my God, there's a new way of seeing this, so that they do their own de-education. We don't strip anything away from them. We're just simply saying, I think there's a whole other thing over here that you may not have even known exists.
We're giving them options or alternatives that they didn't have before.
But we do that by stripping away something. And, Elizabeth says we don't strip anything away, which isn't true. I'm not arguing. So don't look. But it not in the sense that you directed the question. The thing, when they come in for usually 2 days. If it's a week-long workshop, we do 3 days, 5 days, and 7 days. And if it's a week-long workshop, for the first 2 days, the camera stays in the bag. They're not allowed to get it out, no matter where we are in the world. And we always have the most over-the-top locations. We'll rent out castles and chateaus, and we have the riads coming up in Morocco, and it's going to be eye candy everywhere that you're going to want to photograph. And the realization I had many years ago, several, which is a lot, was the camera gets in the way of the photographer. And the photographer, in turn, gets in the way of the artist. So stripping that camera out of the way first is my go-to thing. It allows you to get it out of the way and ask yourself, well, why would I want to take that picture? Why would I want to make this picture? And it's also the vocabulary we talk about with them. And we get into this habit of, it's like, I'm going to take this picture. I'm going to take the. It's like, I just want you to try out the word make this photo.
You're going to make it.
Let's make something, or let's create something. And just in the vocabulary, I mean, Elizabeth has taught me a lot about this too, that it changes your whole concept of what you're doing.
Words matter.
Like, oh, yeah.
Language creates.
It allows you to be a photographer or an artist.
Yes.
And I think a photographer in a lot of people's minds, like, I'm going to take these photos. I'm going to take them. And as an artist, you create from yourself. And so the photographer in that kind of mindset is looking for approval outside of themselves. Where an artist just looks to themselves. Am I happy with this? Yes.
And
Move
that
forward.
takes courage.
And
it's hard to do.
Well, it sounds scary.
Yeah,
super
it
scary.
is. It's
I'm
so
just
scary.
saying, from my standpoint, it sounds scary, and I'll tell you why. And I'm sure you'll have a response. Because in my mind, I think, okay, yes, the artistic piece is create for yourself. So this is really simplified, oversimplified, disclaimer. The artist piece is create for yourself. The business piece is create for someone else. Again, oversimplified, but that's where my mind initially goes, right?
Yeah.
And so initially I think to myself, if you feed too much of your efforts and energy and they're pointed so much to the art, and we kind of talked about this on our last podcast, actually.
I don't remember the last podcast.
That's kind of what a part of this was, and I talked about how in my mind you are the quintessential artist because you always have been to me personally. Like I would, if I made a list, like you would be at the top of that list of people I like. This dude is a real artist, right?
What does that mean to you?
Creating for yourself. Like you've said it before. You would say I shoot for my soul. Like I shoot because I have to. Like I don't even like you've said those types of things.
Yeah.
And one of the things that it really hits home with me, and when you say what does it mean to me, the I believe you. I think that's why. I don't believe everybody that says that.
Yeah.
I've heard other people say things like that. When you say it, I believe you. And I think that's why, in my mind, you're on that list. But the scary part for me, right? And the oversimplification is shoot for yourself, artist, shoot for others, business person, right?
Right.
And so the scary part for me is if you put too many eggs in one basket or the other, because I've seen both.
Sure.
You know, the business person that actually ends up hating
Oh, yeah.
the art of photography and really gets to the point where they don't even understand it anymore. But they can retire at 62, right? Okay?
Yeah.
The artist who on one end shoots for themselves continually and leaves the other piece out. Like some of the best photographers I know don't have a retirement plan. I'm not saying one is necessary. Well,
Yeah,
I'm raising my hand,
we
Will.
both
here
have
you
our
are.
hands
So here you
raised.
are. Then maybe in a sense I'm talking to
Ask
you.
me if I'm happy.
Well, that's okay. So that's what it comes down to, because
Yeah.
then it's like, what is success? And the business person is going to say
Exactly.
retirement
Yes.
at 62, and the artist is going to say,
To do what?
I'm ecstatic. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I
Right.
love life.
Or do you? And I get the question. Oh, what are you going to still be shooting at 83?
And you say, I hope.
Certainly hope
Right?
so.
Okay. Right. Okay.
I
Good.
certainly hope so.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that should be the answer, right?
Yeah, and it's a longevity thing. I think with pleasing everybody else, you have to go with all the trends. You have to follow. You have to be a lemming, as I say.
a
You know,
lemming,
and
right.
and when you shoot for yourself, you collect your own tribe. People will come to you no matter what you make, how weird it is. If you look at the history of art, some of the strangest things have the largest followings. Like Joel Peter Witkin is a photographer that his stuff is so left field that people can't even look at it. Yet his pieces sell for tens and twenties and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And it's a very collectible thing because he's saying something to the world.
Right.
Yeah.
He's saying something to the world, and the people that can hear what he's saying are attracted to him.
Right.
The others can't look at it. That's fine. That's not his tribe. He doesn't want those people because that becomes the client that that calls and kicks the tires and, well, I don't know how much. Can I get just a digital file of this masterpiece for $100,000?
Right.
You know, and that's what we're up against. And I refuse to play that game because I don't. I can't be bothered with it. You know,
Right.
I can't.
Yeah.
The business aspect of things don't excite me.
Right.
I make enough to get by. I
Right.
make enough to travel and to make my own work, and we have a very comfortable life.
Right.
And you know, I got a new pair of cowboy boots.
And what else? What else could you want? Really?
Exactly.
I get it.
Yeah.
Right.
get
Yeah.
it.
I mean, really, when we think about what our ideal life is, it's just having time to create, having time to travel.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds to me like you guys are like, what is that? The Mexican Fisherman? You know that story?
No.
Do you not know the Mexican Fisherman?
No.
What is it?
Tell me.
I saw it on the wall in Jimmy John's, so I just figured that this was a thing. And it's this big, long story. But
we're gluten-free. We don't go to Jimmy John's.
Well, yeah, you would stay away from Jimmy John's. I am not gluten-free, although I probably should be. It's the story of this Mexican fisherman, right? And I'll butcher this, but so I don't want any
You mean
emails about
fillet it?
this. What? That's very good. Ta-da-ta. It's this Mexican fisherman who gets up every morning and he goes out. He loves to fish. He gets up, he goes out every morning. He catches a few fish. He comes back before breakfast. He throws some fish on the fire, cooks it for his kids, sees them off to school, hangs out with his wife for lunch, has a siesta in the afternoon. And then that night they all gather in the town. They play the guitar. They have the time of their lives. Next morning he does the same thing. Goes to the market, sells a couple fish, whatever. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And at one point, a businessman comes down on vacation and he sees the Mexican fisherman coming in with his fish on the dock in the morning. And he says, "Hey, that's an amazing catch. Where do you get that?" And the Mexican fisherman says, "Well, I've lived here all my life. I know all the great spots to fish." And the guy's like, "Well, you should turn that into a business." And the Mexican fisherman says, "Why?" And the guy says, "Well, you know all the hot spots. You could expand and you could grow and we could invest and we could have a huge thing down here and you could be making all kinds of money." And the Mexican fisherman says, "Why?" And the guy says, "Well, so that you could retire and then you could spend your days spending time with your family and do whatever you want and have a great time at night. And like you could actually have time to meet people." And the Mexican fisherman's like, "I do that now.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing now." Like you're living.
Yeah.
So even I feel a little bit ashamed because here I am saying, the part of me that gets afraid of this business mentality that's been ingrained as an ideology maybe in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm like living the thing that I'm talking about in real time right now with you guys. It's happening to me, but I'm thinking you're doing that already.
Yeah.
Like you even said it when I said to retire and you said, "What are you going to do?"
Right. Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I'd want to do whatever I want to do.
Which is what I'm doing.
You're already doing it.
You're chasing your tail,
Yeah.
and you're wasting your life doing it.
Yeah.
And and these are the moments we see at the workshops when people
We just
have
had
that
one.
realization, right? You're going to owe us some money after this.
Send me a bill.
I'm going to have to send you a bill, Jeff. But
But it's
that's
interesting.
what
You
we
didn't
see.
even have to do much.
No, you do all the work.
You
Our
were just
students do all
available
the work.
for the conversation to
Exactly.
occur.
Absolutely.
And you're also
Yeah.
an example in that is what you were doing. And
Yeah.
I think that's the other piece when you were asking me about why, because you don't just say it, from a stage. You don't just say, "I shoot for my soul." You then go out and you shoot for your soul.
Yeah.
That's what you do
Yeah,
all the time. So you practice what you preach.
I do.
Yeah.
I have nothing else to say about that. I do. And I love it. And sometimes I'm not embarrassed, but I kind of feel sorry for other people.
People that don't, right?
Yeah. But on the other hand, I don't rub it in people's faces either.
No.
I just stay quiet and I'm...
And we go through plenty of our own self-doubt.
oh my
It's
gosh.
not like we're just living the perfect life and
No.
we're like, "Oh, you fools." We question ourselves.
How does this self-doubt manifest itself? What does it look like when you have that
it will just
struggle?
be like a crisis of self-doubt. Like one day, okay.
4 days ago.
4 days ago. Okay, wait. 4 days ago, you come in. Okay, so I think 7 days ago, you were like, "I've never been this scattered in my life."
Yep.
And then Thursday night, you walk in the bedroom, folding the laundry, and you're like, "I think I got it. I think I figured it out." And
Yeah.
and then what happened? Your computer crashed, and you're like, "That's it. I think this is a sign. I got to go all film. Forget this freaking digital." And
Yep.
but this
really?
so I think, and I just said this to you the other day. I'm like, this is what it means to live in the creative process. It's so messy. It's not linear. You're constantly moving in and out of like, "I got this. Oh no, I don't have this at all."
Right.
And I think that honestly, I don't think the creative life would be creative or authentic without that. At least for me. I know for me as an artist and as a writer, when I go to my writing, I'll be like, "Oh, that's a piece of shit. Let me completely redo that." And then I redo it and I'm like, "Yes, that's what I want." And then I'll go on to the next piece and I'm like, "Nope, that's not it." And I don't know. I think there's a way that feeling into what's real and true and right right now, and being okay. I just said this morning, you know, we're staying in Homer, you know, Parker's RV.
Oh, they know Homer.
Yeah. And you know, I'm getting in the shower and it's freezing. It's 30 degrees. And I'm like, oh, this is such an adventure. Like and I thought to myself, the more I can be okay, we can be okay with discomfort on every level, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whether it's physiological. Both Parker and I deal with anxiety. I have a long history of PTSD, and thanks to him, mine is so much better. But we both deal with it.
Right.
You know, it's like, and so we have to ride the waves of it. So we don't want to sit here and preach like, hey, come over here to our side because everything's perfect over here.
Right.
It's more like,
It's far from perfect.
it's not perfect.
There's no such thing as perfect.
But
you were delighting in discomfort, and I think that's so rare.
Yes.
That's an act of will.
Yeah, and
It's a choice.
You have to decide that.
It's a choice.
It's an orientation, right? Like, how am I going to see this right now, this lack of likes on my Instagram page, or the shoot I just did that I hate all of it, or the one that I did that I love that I'm scared to show the client, or whatever, you know, whether it's that kind of thing, or whether it's, I feel so anxious today, I don't even know why, or it's like, oh, I have this idea, let's go do it. Shit, I can't, I got to get my kid from school, or whatever. It's more that it's an orientation of like, okay, wait, I could just choose to be annoyed or irritated or overwhelmed or whatever about this thing in front of me, or I can be like, wait a minute, I created this life for myself, and I can show up to this in the way that I choose. And I feel like that's where I get excited about this life that we've created together, that I've created for myself, Parker's created for himself, and now coming together. It's like we get to choose over and over and over again.
I don't think a lot of people live like that, though.
They don't.
I really don't. That you have a choice of.
I think we don't know we have choices.
Of designing your life.
Yeah.
You can design your life to be anything you want.
Yeah.
Right?
So what do you say to the person? So if I'm a devil's advocate right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't disagree with you. But on the other hand, what do you say to the person that has maybe unknowingly or not purposely made a certain amount of choices, and they find themselves in a position where they have what they consider to be a lot of responsibilities? I would say objectively responsibilities would be like children, or a job where they're responsible for a lot of people,
right?
You know, like different positions or whatever. So they are literally in a spot where, or aren't they literally in a spot where there are certain choices they have to make in order, because they have responsibilities that they have made choices up to that point, and they find themselves in that position. Is it just like, well, buck up, camper, and you know, decide to be happy in your misery?
No, not at all. It's the opposite. It's okay, what is the direction? What is my goal to get out of this? I have to do this for right now. Like for me, I had to photograph weddings to get to where I am now.
Yeah, okay. I get that. That's helping.
I didn't like photographing weddings.
It got to that
Actually,
point.
I liked photographing weddings.
Right.
I didn't like the business of weddings.
Right, okay.
Especially recently.
Right.
And so leaving that wedding world behind is a transition that I had, or photographing those weddings was a transition I had to go through to get to what I'm doing now, which is teaching, self-publishing.
Right.
This is what I want to do. I want to speak with my art. I did that. I brought that to my wedding game, which amplified my wedding work, which made me sought after by a couple people. And that, like, bringing that to that made that work.
Right.
Does that make sense? I said a lot of makes.
Well, and it put you in a position where you then had the option to get out of that.
Yeah. But all the way through the wedding work, I really photographed for myself. And I would tell my clients to their face that I am making these images for me. I'm going to make me happy. And if you're coming to me and you like what you've seen, I'm not going to shoot any of that you've seen. Everything's going to be personalized to you, and it's going to be made for me. And they bought it. And I bought it, and I went and I created it, and I held up my end of the bargain.
Right.
And it was an amazing challenge.
But it didn't happen overnight for you to get out of that.
No.
And I think that's what we would say to anyone we're working with is, okay, so you're in a situation that you don't like.
Right.
So you're not going to fix that overnight.
Right.
But if you have, and we talk a lot about this, if you have a vision of what you want to move towards, which starts with knowing who you are and what is authentic to you and what you're most hungry to bring to the world. If you have that vision, then you will find a way every time to make it work. We both have kids. It's not like we can just, travel anywhere we want, anytime we want.
Right. You have those responsibilities.
We have responsibilities, but we have created a life that allows us to travel a lot more than most people get to. And what an incredible gift that is that we've given ourselves, that we've created ourselves. So I think it's not about like, you don't just live in your misery and you don't just fix it overnight. You don't just ditch everything, but it's what are you moving towards and what is your why?
So do goals for you guys look the same way you think they look for everybody else?
No. Heck no.
Okay.
Sorry, why was that funny? But it was.
Well, because
I was hoping it would be because I want you to then explain to me why not.
Well, I mean, first of all, go ahead with your goals. We were just talking about this. What did you say that smart has the plan, stupid
Smart has the plan,
story?
stupid has the story.
Yeah.
My friend Joe Photo and I that has been our motto.
Well, I feel like Joe Photo and Denise are doing like they have some of the same philosophies. Is that off?
Sure. I mean, we've been buddies for
a long time,
almost 20 years.
I know you guys have.
Yeah,
and I see years, he does his morning cup of Joe.
Morning cup of Joe. Yeah,
I watch those.
Yeah,
and
he's awesome.
And they're traveling hither and thither, and and I feel like they're. I don't know. The word that comes to my mind is free-spirited because I feel as though you guys aren't encumbered by the things that typically encumber us as human beings. Is that?
Right.
Well, I think we're more encumbered. We have a mortgage. We have kids in elementary school.
Okay,
so
those types of responsibilities. And they
exactly.
Right. But the mindset's
but we make
similar,
it work.
right?
It's very similar.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Right.
Yeah.
And what was it? Your grandfather, Homer, always said.
Homer. We talked about that. The person with the most stories wins.
So I think and this is something I'm learning really beautifully from Parker too, is how to just be. And not, I'm someone who's very go, create. And I burn myself out in my business really badly doing that. And so it has been just an extraordinary experience.
Because you lose the sense of self, like who you are?
Well, because the external becomes everything.
Okay.
Rather than where am I operating from, right? Even though I was doing all this incredible work with these students and working with incredible, profound mentors, there was still always the feeling of external. Rather than there's this quietude, there's this clarity. So I think for me, I tend to be more goal driven.
We'll talk about that a little bit. And
Then
tell me about
does.
the laughter. To my question, honestly, because I asked it expecting that.
Yeah.
But it's because I want to know how and why your goals or goal setting or the way you conceive of them or think about them is different than other people.
Well, go.
My goal is to be a feather that never hits the ground. And I don't really have goals. I have ideas and I have a feeling, I have a knowing of my direction. And I have a trust in myself.
A sense.
It is a sense,
so to speak.
Yeah. But it's a knowing and a trust in myself to follow a feeling of I'm not sure why I'm going on this trip or making this series of work, or I'm not sure what it means yet, but I feel that I will. And it always does. It always makes sense.
It's a faith.
It is a faith. It's a
Isn't
deep
it?
faith in self.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a knowing. It's an inner knowing that I doubt all the time. This can't be real. But it is.
Yeah.
But it's something we go back and forth on quite a bit. And goals are,
we don't really talk about goals.
That's about as far as a goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I used to be way more goal oriented. We just hit the new year and people always put up their resolution. I didn't make any resolutions this year. Any.
Well, I didn't either, but part of the reason was because I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to stick with them.
Right. I mean,
that's legit. That's my reason.
Yeah.
That I did.
And that is legitimate. And I think this is where vision is so much more important than goal.
Okay.
Vision and intention.
Yes.
Okay, help me out with that.
Well, because a goal is I'm going to make this much money, or I'm going to lose this much weight, or I'm
Sure.
going to this many clients, or and it's all external. But if you have a vision and it comes from deep within you of this is authentically who I am, this is what I want to bring to the world because I must, then that is an orientation. It's not a you did it or you didn't. It's a movement towards.
Yeah.
A goal is, did I check it off? A vision is, who am I being? I had this incredible mentor who always said, I want you to check in with yourself. What is your way of being? How are you creating from that place? He was never cared about the externals. Externals were not important.
And they're not.
No, and I know this from being an entrepreneur. I guess I kept thinking, if I just make this much money, I'll be good. If I make this much money, I kept getting more and more money, and I realized this is a complete failure. For me personally, that was not it. Who cares that I hit the goals?
Right.
I didn't have enough of a clear vision beyond just the goals. Even though I always thought of myself as very, visionary. Right? It was still driven by goals and checklists and external measurements. And I've been schooled by this man in the last year to let go of goals and be just in a place of being and letting that be not just enough, but my lifeblood.
We're sharing a smile right now.
What does it look like when that goes awry? Because if you're living in the, I don't know, if you're living in the ups and the downs of it, you said like the shower. I understand.
Sure.
Like that's a good example, right? Of like, oh, the shower's cold. I can choose to delight in the adventure of this.
Yeah.
And I would guess that that's relatively insignificant compared to other challenges that might be considered more difficult.
Of a challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What does it look like? What do the hard ones look like? What do the big ones look like?
Messy. Really messy. And sometimes, I notice in myself that my instinct is to, when I'm triggered by old things, to go to a place of fear and then to doubt myself, to doubt Parker, and kind of doubt everything.
Yeah.
And so again, we were just talking about this the other day. It's like, all right, when I'm in that place, it's not, that's just a piece of me that's speaking. So I think more and more what we've been working together is to realize when those pieces inevitably come up, because we're human, everybody's going to have these different pieces that come in and have a lot to say that may have nothing to do with vision, but have everything to do with survival. Right. And and those parts, of course, come up. We have that strong primitive part of our brain that says I'm out or whatever. And so what we've been really actively doing together is being able to say, okay, wait a minute, this is a part of me right now. I'm going to go take myself out into the woods. I'm going to go take myself to my favorite tea house. I'm going to go out and shoot whatever we need to do to kind of give those parts of ourselves the opportunity to say everything they need to say. And then we're like, okay, yeah, thank you for your opinion. And now back to our usual programming of let's stay connected to vision, so.
You don't get bogged down by it then.
We can't.
We can't. I mean, we would, everything would go to hell if we did that. And
it would.
We would be human if we did that. And we are not.
But you are hitting the nail on the head. I know, kind of, sort of in jest, but also very seriously in that, which is your style, and I love it. But that's what I'm getting at. We are human. How do you not do what humans do?
It's not.
You know yourself.
But I don't think it's about not doing what humans do. It's about how do you not get caught in that and
that's what I'm referring to. How do you not get bogged down by it? How do you not get caught in it? Because you say you're able to stand back and say, okay, thanks for the update or thanks for the information. I am now going to go back to my regularly scheduled programming. That sounds a lot easier said than done.
Oh, it's work. Absolutely. But for me personally, I have my own process and practice. It's get out in the woods. It's go write.
Okay.
It's go scream wherever I need to scream.
Okay.
It's, and I know, I kind of watch myself. I'm like, whoops, time to go do my process.
Yeah. Go
right?
through it.
And so more and more what we've come to an agreement is when I go in that space, which I do pretty easily, given a long history of other crazy stuff that happened, I tend to go back into that primitive place in my brain fairly easily. And so our agreement is I will go and do what I need to do to process that.
Right.
And then we can come back together and talk about it.
Yeah.
It's not that he's not there to help me through it. It's that I got to go work it through, and then I'll be offline of only primitive brain talking.
So it seems to me like one of the big advantages of doing that is that you're actually dealing with it rather than denying it or stuffing it or dismissing it.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
That'd be the worst possible thing to do. I mean,
Right.
that's what cripples relationships or businesses or
and it's
even
what I
self.
did for the first 22 years of my life.
You stuff it.
But, it was just swallow. And so when I was in the convent, I literally got to the point where I couldn't remember anything, literally nothing. And I was so numbed out and shut down that I was afraid for my mind. So I've lived in the extreme of that place of numbing out and stuffing.
Yeah.
And I just can't, it's not even in my
You know what it's like
body to live like that
Right.
anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So what, from a structural standpoint, what you guys do, let's get a little pragmatic for a second. That might be a terrifying word for you, although you do have things set up with workshops and whatnot for other people to come and kind of come and taste and see, so to speak, what it is that you offer and what it is that you think they can benefit from regarding your philosophy and your way of doing things and your way of seeing the world in a lot of ways and your way of seeing yourselves. So you mentioned these places where you have workshops. Give a little taste of what a workshop is. You've mentioned a couple pieces, but what should somebody come to a workshop and hope for on the other side?
They should come to the workshop and hope for a better understanding of their own personal creative process. And I think the majority of people don't know that. They don't know how to get from A to B. They may have great ideas, but have no idea how to get it there, or they don't know how to have great ideas.
Oh, okay.
So they just look outward and all the peripheral pollution out there that they weed through. I mean, images are everywhere now. You can't even get away from them.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to be a lemming. It's easy to be that follower that's like, oh, I like that. I want to try that. And there comes a part in an artist's life that they have to step away from cloning, from mimicking what others do. That is part of the process. I understand that. It's like learning that lighting, copying what other people are doing. That's part of the process. It always has been.
And there's so much more. So don't stop there.
Yeah, don't.
Right?
But know when to step out of there, because that's the safe zone. That's where the business gets in the way, because right now this is making me money.
Right.
But that's all going to change in it used to be 5 years, now it's 5 months, right?
Right.
So everything's changing so quickly.
Right.
The faster we can get to know who we are and what we have to offer the world, that's the good stuff. That's where you need to go.
Right. And honestly, from a business and a pragmatic standpoint, you put yourself into a position where you don't have to rely on anything or anyone else.
Right.
Because you're doing it yourself and it's coming from you, and it's not merely a copy or merely a mimic of somebody else's work or style. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. But we, in these workshops, we do use the cameras.
At some point.
But when it's time, and so we dream for a couple of days. We teach everyone how to dream again. We really go back to being kids, which in when you're a kid, there's no right or wrong. There, even though mom and dad says there's no right or wrong. You just play. And getting back to that play, and once you start doing that, you start opening up your mind and you start dreaming, well, I could do this, but that just seems totally crazy. It's like, no, it's not crazy. Let's do that.
Right.
And so we have all these people. Oh my gosh, our last workshop we did in Joshua Tree, I have this whole curriculum set up of, we have a model come in and we're going to learn some lighting and we're going to put your story with the lighting. Now, what kind of lighting is going to tell your story? Well, it's very personalized. Our workshops, we have 10 people maximum. A lot of them are 5 people.
So they're small and they're intimate.
Very small,
right.
they're very intimate. And we really push to their own creative process. And then all the others learn from them.
Right.
So we basically turn our quote students into the teachers.
Right.
And I totally lost the last workshop.
Yeah.
It turned into so much self-reflection that the whole workshop decided for the whole week, it's just self-portraits. That's all we want to do, to tell our story. We don't care about a model. We don't want to make, what I always say, the pretty image. We don't care about that.
She was there for 2 hours or so?
Yeah, an hour and a half. I think 2 hours. Yeah. We had a model one day for 2 hours at this particular workshop. Other workshops, we have models, the whole time to kind of live out their dreams,
right.
And in a photograph or a story.
And you didn't plan on that. It just
happened. But we have
occurred.
to be ready for all these shifts to happen. And that's, I think, what we're really, really good at is following the tribe, following where do we need to go here. And
because it's not like, okay, 9 to 5 and then you're off. It's, the 24/7 when you're not sleeping, and really getting in and understanding each individual person's needs and heart and hunger. And, one of the women, she discovered something about herself that she just said something casually in passing in conversation, and I got really interested in it, and it ended up being the entire subject of her self-portrait that was so much bigger than the self-portrait. It was about who she wanted to be in her life, and which of course in turn impacted how she wanted to show up in her business and her as a photographer.
And how she is living now.
Yeah.
Well, and you can do that from a practical standpoint because there aren't 37 people there.
Exactly. And that's why we do that.
Right.
Because we know that always that it's about the relationship. We only can transform and be transformed in relationship. It's not about information.
So where do people go to find the information? Where do they go to find out where you're going to be next?
The interweb is the best place.
It's on the interweb.
It's on the interweb. myname.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
Parker
can
Pfister. Parker. P is in pneumonia. F is in Frank. ISTER.com.
That's where they go.
ParkerPfister.com, and there's a workshop page there. And
what are the ones for 2020 look like that you know of?
That we know of now, we just launched Oregon last week. We're in the Columbia River Gorge in Oregon at a amazing inn. That one's half full already. We have Morocco in September. That one's half full already. We have the Badlands in May, which was full, and we just had somebody drop out. So anybody wants to jump in on that.
Spot for that.
Working cattle ranch in the middle of nowhere.
That's incredible.
We did it last year there, and it was probably our most popular one. That's why it sold out so quickly.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, we just had a dropout. So yeah, we'd love to see you there.
And we were just talking about Italy and
we just talking about an Italy workshop. And the workshops are all a little different. Not all a little, well, they're all very different, but some workshops are a full 7 days. Those are the really deep creative process. Some of them are 4 to 5 days, and those are more portrait driven, but we still get into your head with that. And those are typically a little smaller group. So we cook together, we clean together. We're up 24/7. We all share a big mansion somewhere or a house, and it's like a little guest ranch house out in the Badlands, and we all just shack up, and we have guitars and we sing around the fire, and we live our lives, we live our lives like we want to, and we try to teach them that too.
Thanks for doing this and for sharing.
Thanks for having us.
Now I got
what a
stuff
pleasure
to think about for the rest of the day.
Wow. He's going to think about us the whole day.
I am going to ponder this.
Not tomorrow, but today.
Well, I don't even go that far yet. I don't even want
Tip of your finger. That's
I don't
it.
even want to think about. Yeah, you taught me that to some degree.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time for doing this, and I wish you the best of luck. And I hope that spot gets filled up in the Badlands, maybe even from this podcast.
That would be great. When does this air?
I don't know.
Well, it's probably too late then.
It might be. Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Makes
Jed.
two changes.